Nick Indiglio and John Ross are here for yet another week of exciting education-related action. So we've got a lot to talk about tonight. And John, you want to kick us off with our first topic, which I
Well, we
thought
were
was an
thinking
interesting
about,
choice by you.
yeah. I mean, thinking about how we spent time in our first episode this season talking about things that we were right about. I thought, full disclosure. I mean, it's more often than not that there's things that we've been right about. We could have done a bunch of episodes just on that, but thinking about, there were some things that maybe we didn't quite hit the mark on. Maybe that we felt a certain way about. Look, you two guys been around as long as we have leading schools. There's occasionally going to be times where you don't quite hit the mark with what you're thinking on something. So I thought we would do a quick segment on things that we wanted to confess that we were wrong about.
I think confession is good for the soul, and it's as good a time as any about to talk about the things we were wrong about. And since our short videos are doing better than a lot of the other content on online right now, we might as well talk about a subject that there's not much to talk about. So we're not wrong that often. So what do you want to lead us off with, John?
So the first thing, the one that I spend the most time thinking about, is something I think pretty common in schools today, an issue in schools today, and that's student cell phone use, student possession and use of phones in schools. When we go back to, I don't even know what year, what was it? Maybe like 2015, 2016. I don't know, maybe even earlier than that when,
I think it was that was earlier.
phones, yeah, probably earlier. That's what happens when you get old, the years start blending together. Thinking about how we were involved in our district and the conversation was around, this new technology, quote unquote, that kids all have access to because the numbers of kids that were having smartphones was growing and growing. We're going to maximize it. Everybody's going to have a device, so let's do a bring your own device, and we're going to allow kids to. They're going to have this great technology piece in their hands, and we're going to use it for everything from calculators to doing research to finding apps that are going to be helpful for educational growth. And we had these wonderful plans where, oh, they're not going to have them out when you don't want them to be out. They're just going to be there when you need them. And we went full bore in like red zones and yellow zones and green
Yep.
zones, and oh, isn't this so great? And there were people on my faculty at the time, and there were people that we were friends with that were like, "This is a bad idea," and we're like, "No, this is the way we're going." And yeah, couldn't have been more wrong on that. Couldn't have been more wrong on that one. It quickly became a distraction. Very quickly became a distraction. Created problems both in terms of inappropriate use and kids taking them from one another and distraction from the lesson. Kids gaming when they're supposed to be doing something. Just multiple levels. It was just a huge whiff on my part in particular. Someone who was kind of really behind the idea. Yeah, couldn't have been more wrong on that one.
Yeah, and when this started, BYOD was at the time the only game in town as far as technology went. So this was back in
Right.
the days when we still had computer labs, and there
Yep.
were computer carts for teachers who wanted to sign out carts to work on English papers or things like that. And that those were huge time sucks. And a lot of our belief at that time was, hey, we put the power into the hands of the student to bring the device. They're going to
Right.
save a lot of instructional time, cut down on a lot of the stuff that took time to just get ready to make happen. And yeah, in terms of efficiency, I remember we saw it as this is such, and we thought we had the rest of it figured out. The red zones, yellow zones, green zones, to a large degree, those are still in use. Bathrooms and locker rooms still always red zones, like never allowed. But unfortunately, the technology evolved beyond our comprehension quicker than we could keep up with. And I think at that point it was like, well, the genie's out of the bottle, so where do we go next with this? And of course, exasperated totally by the pandemic, where we sent kids home and completely
Yeah.
isolated them, and their only outlet then became those phones. And when they came back a year later, or however long it was, depending on where you were, at what school district, what part of the country, we had basically said you can't go anywhere, you can't go outside, you can't be close to people. And the only thing you can really use at your disposal is your device. It was a lifeline for parents to, I guess, a large degree, because there was nothing else you could do. You're all locked in the house together, and there comes the research on the mental health and all the aspects. So not only did it disrupt the learning environment, but it's created untold problems in terms of self-image issues and self-worth. You see the articles all the time about suicide and just the negative effect, and it's not getting better. That problem
Right.
has been exacerbated by things we've talked about being positive in the first episode. You look at some of these artificial intelligence programs that kids are on and playing with today, and um, do we really know? Is that good? Is that bad? Are they not interacting with real people? It's a computer. Real emotions are attached. I mean, we're in science fiction movie territory with a lot of this.
Yeah, and I think we're going to go down the mental health angle a little bit more in just a minute. But just circling back to just the technology itself, I don't think anybody could have imagined that it would become what it became. I mean, they just moved, the whole thing just moved at such a lightning pace that the adults couldn't keep up, and the things the kids were able to do, to be discreet about their uses, and then you add smart watches to it, and the ability to connect, and even though their phone's not out, they can still be
Yeah,
texting or doing things using their watches as well. The distraction was certainly a big part of it, although I think most teachers were able to set up boundaries in their classroom that kind of controlled that. But again, something that, I didn't really think about that there was a lot of research that led to is even the idea of, well, it's not on me, but what's happening that I'm missing? If it's in my locker, or if it's in my book bag, even really worse, if it's in your pocket and it's vibrating, that,
yes,
that FOMO component to where kids began to develop that the fear of missing out, even if it was in their locker. Like there wasn't anywhere near them, and they just got so attached to it. Still, um, that even when we put restrictions on it and we controlled where they could access it, they couldn't focus on the lesson because they were focusing on what might be happening because they've got a couple of friends at lunch that are able to text one another and I'm not at lunch, and so I'm missing out on the conversation, or a million different things that could be happening. And that was the one that really, when I first started to hear that, I was like, yeah, wow, swing and a miss. Like, just did not anticipate that at all. Our approach a lot, like I said, was the teachers controlling your classroom, and people were against calculators when they first came out, and people were
yep,
against chalkboards, like, you want to go back to easels, and we kind of made light of a lot of that, even in our podcast. I think we did even at the time,
yeah, yeah,
and
definitely.
not even thinking about there's just so many ramifications that we didn't even contemplate that I really wish we had. I don't know that we would have done anything differently other than anticipating some of those things and trying to maybe not be quite so enthusiastic about the idea.
Yeah, I mean, and the opposite side of the FOMO piece, because that in the research that came out, that really struck me too. But additionally, just how the dopamine receptors get tipped off when they get that notification of a text message or a social media like, and it's akin to addictive behavior. An alcoholic getting a drink, a gambler, plugging the coin and pulling the lever, and it's like, okay, great. Well, yeah, we just put a drug or a weapon into a,
Yeah, yeah.
and
So
weaponized education.
we mentioned social media, so let's talk about the second one that we were wrong about. This was actually a major component of presentations that we used to do.
Yep.
Not just us, but we heard several others. But that's the idea of access to social media. So, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, we jumped on board right away as a first it was with us as a tool to educate and community within the podcast ourselves. We right away with the podcast we realized we've created a space for people to feel welcomed, and the problems of the principal were shared out. We expanded that with the notion of, well, we have to tell the world the types of good things we're doing in schools. And while social media could have negative sides, one of the good things it can do is share the good news. And the quote we would use in our presentations, John, was, if we don't tell our story, someone else will. And here we are, 12, 13 years later, and that narrative is completely blown out of the water 100% as far as I'm concerned. In fact, that might be an even bigger miss than the BYOD piece, because now, in my strong opinion, that quote is, even if we tell our story, someone else is going to misinterpret it, misreport it, and misconstrue it, and it's going to get twisted. And all I see now is that happening. I can't honestly, genuinely remember the last time on a school page that I was in charge of, anything that I've tried to do that was positive, it didn't somehow turn into a cluster, for lack of a
Yeah,
better term.
yeah, and it really it makes me think. I'm probably going to butcher the quote because I'm forgetting it, but there's a Ben Franklin quote about going to battle with someone who buys ink by the gallon, and that's really what it's become. In that, like, you can't try to combat people. Not combat's the wrong term. You can't try to even reason with people. You can't try to make a point. No matter what you post, if you've got enough followers, no matter what you share, somebody's going to have something negative to say. Someone, somehow, some part of it is going to offend someone, or it's bots or something. Like, there's something out there, this negativity of the social media wasteland, where you put a picture of, like, oh, look at this beautiful picture of my newborn baby, and somebody's gonna be like, oh, you shouldn't be holding a baby that way, or it's something that you just think, how could somebody ever find fault with this? And that's what it's become. Where it was originally, when you go back to the old days of social media, where it was, wow, isn't this great, cool program that you're doing? That's so neat. Like, unless it was blatantly out of line what you shared, people were generally pretty supportive and happy with what you were posting. And now it's become so easy to tear people down, that there's people that's what they do. They buy that ink by the gallon and just tear one another down.
And we see it more and more, not just with people who are not just with the and there's a variety of names we use for these types of people, the people who are waiting to pounce. And it doesn't
Right.
matter, like you said, it doesn't matter what you're going to post, they're going to twist it, because that's what they're there to do. They're gaslighting in a sense. But
Yeah.
now there's the bots that can do that. So now you can program exponentially to make sure those things happen. And from the perspective of when you look at pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, and just the direction that the news media has gone in our country, it's very easy. You're in an echo chamber if you want to be. You can create a presence where you only see what either the left or the right side of the news, either the left or the right, the opinions that you want or the opinions that you don't want when you look onto social media. And you set yourself up to alienate in the most innocent. I love the baby example. That's a great example. Like, oh, the preferred way of holding the baby now is the touchdown football method. You shouldn't be doing that, but it's going to have all these things. And the problem for principals in particular, I feel like, is it went from, hey, we can share out and show the good things we're doing, to, this is consuming so much time and energy, and all it's doing is draining the battery, not charging the battery. And it became, and is still becoming, a nightmare. I think you've referred to it as a wasteland, right? Like the social
Yeah.
media
Yeah.
wasteland, where when we started way back when with Twitter, and we're like, look, we're connecting, we're having these
So
Twitter
great.
hours, and oh my
So
god, we're
great. I
learning
never thought I'd
all over
long
the
for those
country.
days.
And
You
it
think
does feel
about,
like,
without going into too much detail, and I want to go down the angle about the impact of
yeah,
mental health in kids. I don't want to forget that. But you're just reminding me of what I went through this past summer, which was the most unbelievable thing that I've ever experienced in my 20 plus years as a middle school principal, where, in a nutshell, someone created a fake account on a social media platform for my school and was posting inappropriate things, and people ran with it like it was real. People believed it, and I was getting inundated. Not just me, our office staff. We were getting phone calls. We were getting text messages and social media messages on all the different platforms, every platform. Hey, well, it's ridiculous. You need to take that down. What do you think you're doing? Someone's hacked your account. other people were taking it and saying, look what happened in the school. Somebody hacked their account. None of it was real. It was all made up. It was all completely phony. And people saw it and were like, oh man, this is that. Like, that's how, my point being, that's how quickly people are to get angry, or how quickly people are to buy in, or how, and I think about even more recently, some of the stuff that's coming out with AI now. Like, if you're on any platform and you watch a video and you right away, how many times have I sent you movie clips? I'm like, dude, look at
Yes.
this movie that's coming out. It's going to be great. And you're like, John, unfortunately, that's not a real movie. That's all AI. So now I'm like, I had to stop myself today. Honest to goodness, I didn't tell you this. I had to stop myself today because I saw one for Tom Hardy as Rambo. And I'm like, they're
Oh my
remaking
gosh.
Rambo with Tom Hardy? And I started watching. I'm like, duh, John. No, you got suckered into it again. So, people are just so quick to want to be. I think, let me bring the point home. They're so quick to just want to be a part of something. They
Yeah.
want to be able to say they were the white knight. They want to be able to say I stopped this, and I did a whole post about how ridiculous this was. Da, 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 da. And it's not. They're not even taking the time to find out if it's real or not. It's scary. It's really scary. Just what a
Especially
180 it's gone for social media.
and with your example, having seen that fake account, it would take maybe less than 5 seconds of watching any one of those videos to not only realize that there's no way any school in any
Yeah.
part of
The,
the
the
world.
description, sorry to interrupt you, the description on its profile said the wrong type of social media. It said the official blank page of the name of the school. And it was a different platform. It was a totally different platform. So all somebody had to do was be look at the profile and be like, oh, this is wrong. This shouldn't be real. Nope, people bought into it right away.
Nope. I mean, it fits into each piece of what we're saying with that. Now, and you're talking about an imposter account. That leads you right into the mental health aspect in the piece
Yep.
where our children, right, who don't have the fully developed frontal lobes, who will snap a picture and post it without thinking. They think later, someone helps them think about it later, but it's too late at that point. That you can't
Right.
take that back. One of the things we used to talk about was how when we were kids, if you tripped and fell in the cafeteria, whoever happened to be looking at you at that moment would laugh, and it was funny, and you might be embarrassed for a day, maybe 2 days, but that's going to wear off real quick. Today, someone got that on camera, and that's someone's social media or a Snapchat group with 1,000 people. You can't escape that today. So our kids are put in a position where their presence for social media, whichever, pick your app, whatever's popular that day, they have to be perfect. They have to
Yeah.
curate and create an image, and it's not okay anymore to not be okay. So there's no
Right.
authenticity. It's become I want to be a part of this viral trend. I want to participate
Yeah.
in something to for all the other things we were talking about there. And it's hurting kids quite a bit. We're alienating the population that is already at risk in so many ways.
Yeah,
And
I've said a number of times, if I could go, I mean, I've got three kids and they're all 19 years and older. And I've said many times, if I could go back, we let them have devices in middle schools. I think sixth or seventh grade. So if I could go back, I would have held out even longer with letting them have them. But the one thing that I am happy about is that for my children, the three of them have a very small social media footprint, very, very small social media footprint. And I'm so happy that that's the case. I don't know how that happened. Maybe it took after their mother or whatever, but it's so happy that's the case because when you just see how people's lives are getting ruined now. I mean, think about the world we live in right now and how everybody's so quick, like we were saying, to combat one another. My kids are at ages where they're looking for jobs and they're trying to grow as professionals. And if you had the wrong thing on social media, you're done. You're done for. Like you're ruined in a business. You have to change or whatever. So just thinking about mental health for older, not just our kids in middle school and high school, but
yeah,
even post college. The kids that can't get jobs because they posted stupid things when they were in seventh or eighth grade, and now it's coming back to haunt them 10 plus years later. It's scary.
yeah, and the amount and just how scary that is you're looking at just go take that back just a couple years. A kid going to college on a athletic scholarship, who is 18 years old, did something dumb when they were 12, right? So that was
Yep.
6 years prior. They've turned it around. They're a great kid. They're in all the
Doesn't matter.
activities. Doesn't matter. Like that resurfaces immediately. And all of a sudden that's what you're judged on. And we've seen it happen to how many adults? Um,
Yeah.
and don't we always like in our society we talk a lot about people grow, people can change, people's opinions can evolve. That can also happen for people in their 40s and 50s and 60s. So when we pull up, the first example that comes to mind, and it's not a great one. It's just James Gunn. Some of the things he had either tweeted or one of those social media platforms, and it was about 10 years prior to where he was in life, and he came out and said those were horrible things to say. I am not that same person. I don't feel that way. I've changed a lot. I've grown a lot. I've learned. And he still had to do what was considered penance for however many years before you could be back into the swing of things. Now, I'm not using his example to say I agree with or disagree with exactly
Right.
what it was
No,
he
I
said
got
or
you.
did. But the point being is that even grown people do stupid
Right.
stuff. You got to expect the fact that our kids are going to do that too. So how do they get another chance? What does a world look like where no one ever gets that second chance? It's a scary, scary thing.
Yeah, it is scary. I mean, again, to what you said to open up the segment, I think back when we were starting all this, 10 plus years ago, and our strategy, your strategy of, all right, we're gonna be a presence on Twitter, we're gonna be a presence on Facebook, and we're gonna use that to drive up numbers, and we gained followers, and we were so excited. We're picking up steam, gaining followers, gaining people that were interested in what we were doing, and getting the interactions on social media were so great and everything. And now we're at the point where like, hey, we just like doing this, and if people want to
Right.
watch it, like if we don't want to have to use, and it's good for the clips, and we can post the clips and
Yep.
everything. And TikTok is just a whole nother level of social media. It's incredible. Um, yeah, and just thinking about how we use it professionally, and,
Hmm.
and and I think the lines have blurred a lot. I guess what I'm trying to say is between when you think about professional use of it, and I think this is part of the problem, professional use of it. You can't even go on the LinkedIn. LinkedIn is created for your professional use. Like that's supposed to be, and you go on there and people post stuff, and you're like, what are you doing? What are you like? You're an adult now. You're not some 14-year-old kid. You're
Right.
an adult posting stuff on the the social media platform that you're saying you want to use to help yourself get a job, and you're sharing things and putting things, whether it be political or social events, or yourself holding beverages when you're out places, like you never know how that's going to come back to hurt you. That even the platform that's meant for professionalism is being used inappropriately by people.
Another great example.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so we were wrong on those. So mea culpa on our part. Excuse us. We're sorry if we led anyone astray on those two things. Uh, get your money back, I guess is all we could say.
Yeah, hopefully you're
But
still
yeah,
employed.
so our fun segment, we always like to close with something fun, either something in pop culture or things that are going on in our lives. And this might be a little bit of both. You and I have both recently jumped on trends, I guess, things that are
Yeah.
trends in terms of the health and wellness field. A month or so ago, I entered the world of the cold plunge. And as recently as earlier this week, Nick entered the world of the hot sauna in your home. So I have a cold plunge that is in my garage. Nick has a sauna that he set up. Yeah, so I don't know I haven't talked to you since you tried it. What was the first go round?
The comedy part was obviously assembling, this
Yeah,
Amazon purchase
yeah,
of a mini economical budget sauna, which consists of basically a small machine that heats up, produces the steam that pipes into a PVC piped curtain cover, and a lawn chair that is probably 8 sizes too small for me. So, I have. I'm in the middle of the living room in this tent, essentially,
Oh my gosh.
with a fogged up window, and my wife
What were you
laughing
trying
at
to watch
me.
TV? Were you trying to watch TV while you're doing it? Is that
No,
why you're in the
no,
living room? Oh,
I
okay.
did the right thing. A
You
couple
just
drops
found
of
space.
essential oil. Yeah, I
Yeah.
had
Okay.
space,
All right.
and
All right.
lights were off. It was dark.
Mm-hmm. Good.
Tried to meditate. All
So
those
how long did
things.
it go? How long did you make it in there?
So I did make it the full half hour, and it
Nice.
was you do have to set it at a high temperature level because it's not the most powerful machine, but it was no different than being in a full gym sauna.
Really?
Yeah, I mean the heat's a little moister. Obviously, it's not the full dry heat, because you're using
Yeah.
water in order to cause that. But super efficient, very quick to set up and use, and initially the benefits I immediately get from it, like that sweat release is it feels like exercise even though it's not. You get that endorphin release. I was able to relax pretty quickly afterwards, and just the warming up of the muscles. So I just had the shoulder replacement surgery,
Yeah.
and one of the biggest parts of that recovery is you're icing so much, and after use you're tired and you're sore, and it always feels tight and stiff. And it was one of the coming out of that sauna, coming out of that small little tent from fit in a box from Amazon.
It's
uh,
not a sauna, Nick. It's a sauna.
a, a sauna. They do
Yeah.
make doubles, which
I
the
can't even
fact that
begin to imagine. Like,
how two people could get into any.
yeah, the last thing I want to do is be on one of those with somebody else. I mean, I love you all, buddy, but like, I don't care how big it is. I want to be by myself, and if I'm in one of those things.
And I always envision the old, every old TV show that would show, whether it was
Yeah.
Coach did it a lot. All the guys are in the white towels wrapped up in the
Yeah.
sauna.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just try to envision like the home version of that, which is just like this ridiculous concept. So yeah, thus far, and for the price, you really can't beat the experience, because it's become so expensive to go to these other
Right.
places to try those things. Now, in terms of the cold plunge, obviously that is, from a technology standpoint, it's a little bit different to get. And you had to wait for some of the parts to arrive. So
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
how did
So,
that go the first couple times?
it's been interesting. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the reasoning why behind it, but I have my reasons for wanting to do this. And so we ordered it a little while ago. We ordered from a company called Titan. We shopped around and kind of found one that we thought was great, and it's just the circular barrel. We didn't get the lay down tub. It's a circular barrel. You kind of squat down in, and the water raises up to your neck level. We got the chiller that comes with it, so we don't have to like bring bags of ice or whatever. The chiller was on back order to begin with, and then, but interestingly enough, it was on. So we were told by the company it was on a container ship in the port of Los Angeles, and the container got knocked off into the harbor in Los Angeles. And so we were complaining about why it wasn't delivered, and they said, "Okay, we're going to upgrade you because we feel bad about not delivering it on time." They upgraded us to the Wi-Fi connection, so I can now on my phone set the temperature for the cold plunge. So it's got a filter and everything that it cycles through. What was I gonna say? Oh, so yeah, the first couple times, I kind of got interested in it because my son Cameron does it. He lives in Colorado, and he has one on his patio in Colorado. As you can imagine, it gets quite cold in Colorado, and he uses it like he goes out and breaks the ice off the top and gets in. Now he's 24 years old, so he's a little bit more up his alley. Be doing that. I wasn't really interested in that. Did a little research myself into it, and just found that the target area for a gentleman of my age and fitness level was around 50 to 55 degrees, which doesn't sound very cold, but when your butt is in the 50 to 55 degree water, it's quite cold. So I started at like 60, 62, worked my way down. So I'm a couple weeks into it, and I'm 50 degrees for 3 minutes every
Wow.
weekday, and it's been great for me. I found it because I'm not a coffee drinker, so it's really helped me like energize in the morning. It's really helped me get myself, going. I wish that energy would last throughout the day, but it lasts as long as a cup of coffee for sure. So it gives me that bolt of energy. The meditation as well, just trying to think of other things,
Yep.
going to your happy place, and that's embracing the suck a little bit because I know they say, you're supposed to make the most of that as well. but yeah, it's like I'm in. Like I don't know. I've looked at a lot of the research and a lot of different opinions about the health benefits, and in terms of like the potential downsides, I don't think any of them really impact me. So yeah, I've been very, very happy with it. It's been great.
They talk a lot with the cold plunge about the inflammation relief, and bringing inflammation
Yes.
down. In addition to so I think it's fascinating that you have actually felt the energy part, like the cup of coffee effect,
Right.
that people talk about. So that's one of the ones you wonder, okay, is that real, or is that exaggerated? So it's
Yeah.
interesting to hear
Yeah.
that it's real. But from an inflammation standpoint, like have you felt as though are some things maybe less sore, anything akin to like, oh, that was like I took 4 Advil instead, but I didn't take any Advil. It was, a couple hours after the cold plunge and my elbow
Yeah.
doesn't hurt or whatever.
Right. So I'm a stubborn old guy. Like I'm not one that takes Advil. Like I'll just
Hmm.
suffer through it or whatever. Um, so I feel like it has helped with that. I've been on the Nick and Deglio workout program. Nick's been nice enough to like coach me up a little bit on some things in terms of workout, and I felt like the last week or two that I've had this, knock on wood, it's been all good. I really haven't felt any soreness, any muscle soreness, anything like that. Now, I will say one of the things that you learn to do is how to get yourself into a small enough ball to fit in that tub. So I am getting a little bit of a stretch every morning because I'm having to like roll myself up to fit in that. If I was if I was more than like 6'2", 6'3", I think you'd have a hard time fitting in that. Um, but yeah, I've been very, very happy with it. So I'm gonna stick around the 50-degree mark. I don't know that I see a need to get any colder than that. Again, I feel like this is the third episode in a row where I'm going to mention Joe Rogan. I'm not stalking you, Joe Rogan. But, like I know some of the folks like Rogan and all, they talk about like what my son does, like getting in the sub-zero temperature or
Yep.
whatever, and like that's not for me. Like going down to 30 degrees or whatever. Well, from what I've seen, the Nick and Daily line, the juice isn't worth the squeeze for me when it comes down to that. The
Right.
I'm good with 50 degrees. Like I'm getting the message, body. Like I'm receiving the message for sure at 50 degrees, so I don't feel the need to go any lower than that.
At some point when after you eventually have watched Task on HBO,
Yeah,
there's a pretty powerful reference to the concept of what cold water can do to you, and
yeah,
then it's visited at a couple points in the show that really impactful. So
yeah. I got to get on that with the Delco connection and everything. We'll definitely have to get on that and have a review of that. And also,
yeah,
I think we're gonna have to bring your sauna down and go right
yes.
from sauna into the cold plunge. Right, we'll set it up in the garage and just go
Oh.
right from one end to the other. You want a wake up call? That's definitely a wake up call. We'll get up the nerve to try that at some point too.
Yeah, we'll have to get some video on that one for sure.
Good
All
stuff.
right. Well, we appreciate everyone for joining us again for the Rockstar Principles podcast. We'll be back next week. Take some time, follow us on YouTube or anywhere else you consume your podcasts, and we'll see you next time.